Welcome to the second lesson of this first module of the Technical SEO course. In the previous lesson, we looked at some high-level topics that are part of this course, as well as what technical SEO is and how it fits into the overall landscape. Within this lesson, we're going to cover a number of different things that we should consider when we're investigating from a technical perspective, including providing solutions over problems, how we can liaise with team members effectively, crawling ethics, and general morals and environmental considerations. So the first topic, providing solutions over problems. When auditing a site from a technical point of view, or when you're running checks, it's pretty easy to provide problems. For example, if we're reporting on a screaming frog crawl of a website, we can quite easily say there were 100 404 errors seen in the crawl. This amount of insight, while it's useful to know, it's not particularly useful to understanding the why behind the issue. This next example, so there were 100 404 errors seen in the crawl that are linked to from 1,000 pages. Okay, so this is a bit better. There's some additional information that adds perspective. This third example, there were 100 404 errors linked from 1,000 pages seen in the crawl. The majority of these errors are due to misquoted breadcrumb links on product pages referencing incorrect category or subcategory URLs. These misquoted links should be updated to point to the correct location. And in this example, we're providing the problem, the scale of that problem, why that problem's being caused, so due to the misquoted breadcrumb links, and then we're providing a solution to that problem as well. If we wanted to go one step further, we could look through that resource and actually provide updated locations where we can link to that's more relevant than that current 404 page. It's absolutely essential to provide a solution as well as identifying issues. We need to also identify that the root cause of the issue. As shown previously, that 404 issue errors that we were exploring, they're due to misquoted breadcrumbs, and this provides a great starting point for us to investigate further. Is it perhaps a plugin issue that's causing those 404s to be seen? Or perhaps a misconfiguration that's causing the issue? Or is it just something else entirely? Finding these three areas is key to ensuring that issues are understood. Number one is the issue and the root cause behind that issue. Number two is why it's an issue. And then number three is the solution. That's the key three-step area that we look to provide when we're carrying out technical auditing work. In addition to being able to analyze data from screaming frog crawls, from sitebulb crawls, from other sources, and identify root cause of issues, we also need to be able to communicate this effectively with others. That suggested three-part structure shown previously helps aid in this by providing all the relevant information that's needed. You're providing the problem, why it's a problem, and then the solution. We find that if we've done a technical audit on a site, for example, we'll need to adapt the delivery of that technical audit to match individuals' needs. So, for example, if we're delivering that technical audit to the C-levels, for example, they would just need that high-level details, an executive summary. For the SEO team, they might need a greater level of detail that will usually result in discussions as to why things are the way they are, and it usually involves a great conversation. The dev team, they need a different approach where you just highlight what the issue is and a suggested fix. Again, this is going to result in that continued conversation. We'd always recommend having conversations about issues rather than just presenting them all in one go, just telling someone, hey, these are all your problems, these are the solutions, without adding any context, without adding any sort of personal touch to things. So when talking about SEO with other teams, it's actually important to know that they might not know that level of detail that you do, so jargon and that sort of thing. It's also important to remember that while you are the SEO expert, it's also key to provide reasoning behind decisions that others can understand, as well as also listening to others' reasons behind the way they do things the way they do, so you can actually understand the reasoning and everything else behind why a website is set up the way it is. So before crawling a website and analyzing data, it's worth ensuring that you're actually allowed to do so. Some sites are going to have anti-crawling software implemented, making it pretty hard for you to be able to actually gather data. In these sites instances, for example, you'll likely see crawls returning 429s, where there's too many requests hitting a server and it will just start returning 429s, 302s or 5xx server errors. You can then open these URLs in the browser and you should see different status codes to what you see in the crawl. It's worth approaching site owners or webmasters pre-crawl to ensure that you're actually allowed to do so, providing detail about what you intend to do. For super small sites, for example, it's actually possible to slow down through repetitive crawling to the point that they're not easily usable, especially if they're not using great hosting options. And there are a number of general other ethical principles that we really should abide by, especially when we're carrying out SEO work. First of which is to not break the law. Next up, we always want to follow best practice where it's provided. There's numerous sources for this. Google is great for providing best practice, and we always try and abide by those guidelines where possible. We want to do the best thing for a site. We want to not provide misleading information, so that's making sure that our content is optimized, making sure our meta titles, everything else that a user interacts with is correct and accurate. We don't want to copy or rip off or otherwise utilize others' material for our own gain. We always want to, as SEOs, to do work to the absolute best of our ability. Again, as SEOs, we don't know everything and we want to be able to ask for help if we need it. We also want to set reasonable expectations. In addition to those kind of general ethics that we've just discussed, we should also aim to ensure that we're doing the right thing for our planet too. Every megabyte that is sent over the internet results in CO2 being spent due to the various data centers that are being used in serving that content. Current emissions for the entire internet are about 3.7 of the overall global total of emissions, but they could rise to about 14% by 2030 on that current trajectory that we're on. So what can you actually do about this? You want to ensure that web pages are as light as possible. Consider using a green host. And you also want to optimize delivery of your site's resources. And then you want to consider using a CDN for delivery. Using all of these steps is going to help make sure that your web pages are as light as possible and that they also result in less CO2 being spent to serve your content to users. In this lesson, we've looked at providing solutions over problems, how we can liaise with team members a little bit more effectively. We've looked at the ethics of crawling, and we've also looked at some general morals and environmental considerations when carrying out technical SEO work.